It's a tiny one. So you're talking about climate energy issues in there. What do you think are? Do you think energy is an issue that Democrats could win on this year?
Oh, absolutely. I think people seeing $4 a gallon at the gas pump and realizing too that we've got to have a comprehensive energy plan. We've got to look towards the future. It can't be just tomorrow. It's got to be next year and the years after that in terms of what we want to see happen. And I think people really do believe that there's not a rifle shot that's going to solve all these problems. It's going to have to be comprehensive. We've got to look seriously at conservation of energy and how we do that. We need to use less energy, and we can do it. Whether it's just social changes of teaching our children to turn lights off or use less water, or just being good stewards of the properties that we have, whether it's electricity or water or anything else. And I think without a doubt people want to see renewable fuels. We want to wean ourselves off of this dependence on foreign oil. 70% of our oil being imported is ridiculous. We've got to do something about that, and there's multiple ways we can do it. There's no doubt that the conservation plays a role, but we also need renewable fuels, and we need to make sure that we're being thoughtful about those renewable fuels. We're interjecting the thoughts of what it does in terms of our agricultural products and our agricultural needs, our food supplies and other things like that. We need to be innovative. There's a lot of research going on right now looking at different byproducts and other things that we can use to create energy. We need to be thoughtful about that, and we need to make investment in it, because taking it from that research to the consumer takes time and money. We need to speed both of those up.
So we're talking about compromise. There's kind of a compromise legislation in the House and Senate on these energy issues. How do we work out a bill that is able to be passed, but also addresses both the energy and the climate concerns that you've expressed?
Well, the group I'm a part of, which is the G10, the group of 10, the bipartisan group that's been working on an energy plan that really does focus. We put an effort into an Apollo-like project of getting energy-efficient vehicles back onto the roads, not back onto, but onto the roads. Making sure that 80% of our vehicles are going to be energy efficient in a shorter period of time. We've got to look at, again, the comprehensive nature. We've got to make sure that what we do is going to make a difference, and we've got to speed it up. We can do all of that, and all of that's going to have a tremendous effect on the climate, without a doubt.
Environmental organizations like this one oppose drilling. How do you keep in good favor with National Wildlife Federation, for instance, and also call for offshore drilling like you do in the new airplane?
I oppose drilling in places that are impractical as well. But we already have a tremendous infrastructure and effort in the Gulf region for drilling, and to be able to mitigate some of our needs in terms of imported oil immediately, expanding some of that drilling in areas where we already have infrastructure for getting that oil out, as well as know what's actually exist in those areas, makes sense. Drilling in places where we don't know what reserves exist necessarily, and we don't have the infrastructure to get it out to consumers, doesn't make sense. It's not timely enough, and it's way too expensive to do.
Is there concern though
So I
that
agree with them on those points.
is there concern though that calling for any more drilling just supports this idea that the answer is drilling and that the answer is more oil?
No, I mean you're never going to be able to do without oil. What we want to do is displace the amount of oil that we're using. We want to displace the amount we're using, and we definitely want to displace the amount we're importing. So as we move towards wind energy and solar energy, we start looking at how we can produce energy from byproducts like poultry litter or algae. There's tremendous things that we can use, and as we do that, and we have to speed that up, we have to move ourselves from an old energy economy to a new energy economy. And oil has been a traditional resource, and it's going to continue to be a traditional resource, just like coal, water, hydropowers, and other things like that. We just need to make sure we're doing it smarter, so that we're not putting our dependence on oil, that we're moving that dependence for energy onto renewable sources, But we'll still, we may end up eventually having a 10% dependence on oil. We're still going to need oil production. We just need to make sure it's more responsible, and we need to make sure that we're using it less and less and shifting ourselves to renewable sources.
Senator, I was wondering on the gun issue, how do you think Senator Obama can neutralize it, given that it's expected the NRA will launch a campaign against him? And have you given him any advice in terms of how to frame this issue? Do you think through the sportsman issue and trying to make it a little bigger is one way to approach it? Or?
Well, I think without a doubt. I've grown up with sportsmen all my life, and sportsmen are very, very responsible about gun ownership and about the use of guns. I was raised that way. My husband was raised that way. We're trying to raise our sons that way. We've done the hunter safety course. We're looking at ways how we can teach responsible gun ownership. And there's a lot of people that are engaged in that, particularly people in the wildlife community. And I think that's a great thing. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I certainly don't see any reason why Senator Obama would not embrace that.
And do you see an opportunity here where, with conservation perhaps increasingly addressing the issue, that Democrats can make inroads here where they might not see eye to eye on guns?
Absolutely. Democrats are all about conservation. They're all about preservation. I think it's a huge opportunity, because if there's certainly if there's anything out there that sportsmen are interested in, it is maintaining, the wildlife habitat and the heritage. I mean, let's face it, if you're wealthy enough to own your own land, you can hunt. But I represent a lot of people who don't necessarily own their own hunting grounds, and so they are adamantly engaged in the opportunity that their country has to preserve these lands in order that they might be able to use them. Whether it's refuges, whether it's federal lands, whether it's a whole host of other areas that can be used for wildlife enjoyment, whether it's hunting, fishing, whether it's birding, whether it's just picnicking with your families. I mean, my dad was a farmer, and on Sunday afternoons, after church, Mom would pack a big picnic, and Dad had the combine, and we'd go down to the country, and we'd have a picnic in the White River Waterfowl Refuge, and that was our opportunity to have lunch with our dad while he worked. I mean, people that live in these areas, they use and appreciate these lands. They're respectful of them, and they want to see that their nation and their country is not only respectful, but is interested in making sure that those lands remain and grow.
Do you think this issue will play differently than it did against Thor or Kerry in the past years, where they put on the defense of the law? And a lot of people say that the gun issue maybe cost Ford an election. Do you think times are a little different in terms of how this plays out now in 08? Or?
I think they're a little different, and I think that there's probably more natural alliances through the conservation stuff, the conservation issues that are natural alliances for the hunting and fishing and sportsman arena. I will certainly encourage Senator Obama to seize that opportunity and embrace it, and I feel like he will. We've already had some discussions and
this
some
issue,
ways to approach states like ours.
Where you deal with issues such as this.
That's exactly right. To recognize that people in states like ours have tremendous interest in what their government's role is and what this nation's role is in preserving those lands for future generations. And that's important. And certainly it not only is an issue of maintaining these properties and maintaining our commitment as a country, and that's key, our commitment as a country, that we're going to continue to put these dollars where they belong. I mean, in the Migratory Bird Commission, we see a lot of these federal dollars, whether they're duck stamp dollars, whether they are the BRO, whatever dollars that go from the fishing tackle and the boating taxes that go into land and water preservation. the land and water conservation funds that come from the federal side. I mean, all of these things are critical dollars that are important, and we need to, reinforce that those are investments. Democrats are embracing those investments, and just like we're embracing the investment in education for human capital and educating our children, or the investment in infrastructure, roads and bridges, and training for our workers. And this is an investment that we want to make as a nation from the Democratic side.
And you think that's an opportunity, Sarah?
Absolutely, it's an opportunity, and it's one I seize, and I feel confident that Senator Obama will seize as well.